Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mike. You guys are rocking with me in Mike's Intellectual Corner. On today's episode, we are diving into, this is the first contact, the Vikings versus Native American battles. Without further ado, we're just going to dive right in like always. Let's go.
Under green cliffs runs a winding channel, disturbed by a lone navigator, a man striking forward in a canoe meant for three. The 8 companions with whom he set out have been abducted by pale and bearded men, armed with radiant weapons and shields. The man reaches his village, tells them of the ambush, and then rallies a war party for the counterattack. His people are native to the land. Long ago, their ancestors abandoned the Eurasian landscape, braved prehistoric seas and the tundra of mammoths, and settled deep into a world hitherto untouched by humans. As one age passed into the next, the bridge between the 2 hemispheres was broken, and each half of the planet diverged in mutual ignorance of the other. Millennia bore witness to the cyclical death and birth of great empires, peoples and languages, prophecy and faith.
And seeing that's such a cool thought too, to think that us as humans, no matter where we are in the world, even if we're like uncontacted, we're always going to be able to build up a civilization, like an empire, kingdom, religion, all that. Like it's always going to, like it happen no matter what. And it's kind of cool things about
The Vikings of Scandinavia, having ravaged Europe and established outposts on Iceland and Greenland, have just interrupted tens of thousands of years of hemispheric estrangement. They promptly kill their 8 Native American captives. This small band of Norsemen are led by Thorvald Eriksson. His brother Leif earlier made landfall on the American coast, but failed to encounter any native inhabitants. Now the swarm of indigenous canoes comes into view. The Vikings gather to their ship for cover. A staccato rain of stonehead arrows beats against their raised shields. After some time, the siege ends, and the indigenous people paddle away. But a fateful arrow protrudes from the trembling side of Thorvald Eriksson. He asks his men to lay him to rest in this foreign soil, with a pair of crosses at his head and feet. After the captain's final orders are carried out, his men return to the American settlement founded by...
It kind of makes me wonder if that was like one of the archaeological finds that they found that helped prove that this whole thing, that, you know, the Vikings coming first wasn't pseudoscience or pseudo history in the first place. But that'd be kind of cool to, you know, be able to find his resting place and stuff like that.
Carried out, his men returned to the American settlement founded by Leif Erikson and returned to Greenland in the spring. But soon there is another stir, a distant toll of iron and plumes of listless smoke. Dragon boats cruise along the water's edge. A man called Thorfinn Karlsefni has reached the Leif Erikson settlement, along with a party of nearly 70 settlers, Christian and pagan alike. It seems divine favor has blessed these seagoing people with a beached whale from which to feed. They settle warmly in their sod houses for the long winter.
Yeah, you kind of gotta think modern times that we don't have to live off of a beached whale. I feel like that came with a lot of diseases and stuff.
Their sod houses for the long winter. One day, out of the spring woods, people appear. Although frightened at first by the Norse bull, they soon open their packs to present warm pelts from the local fauna and gesture toward the Norse weapons. Through guarded and fumbling attempts to communicate, Karlsefni makes clear that he will not trade his iron weapons. Instead, he offers the milk of their livestock. The Native Americans take delight in the strange beverage, trading all of their pelts for it. Then,
Kind of makes you wonder if their stomachs were even able to handle it, because I know, like, it kind of took Europeans and stuff, like, over generations of, like, you know what I'm saying, drinking milk to be able to even handle it like that. If I'm not mistaken, but...
they disappear again. Karlsefni orders his men to build a palisade around the settlement. The people return in the fall in greater numbers with more pelts. In the tense reunion, one Native American attempts to take an iron weapon, and a Viking strikes him dead. The other Native Americans flee, but Karlsefni anticipates retaliation. He sends out his Norse warriors to lure them into the forest, and then they ambush them. Tomahawk and arrow meet axe and shield. The Vikings scatter the Native Americans and leave a number of them dead in the woods. Karlsefni's expedition remains at the settlement for the winter. Then they load their ships with American grapes and pelts and depart.
It'd be amazing if we were able to know like the dates for these different battles and stuff like that. That'd be amazing.
This story comes directly from the Saga of the Greenlanders, one of two Icelandic sagas that record the Viking settlement of Greenland, Leif Erikson's voyage to mainland America, and the Viking expeditions to the American lands they called Markland, Helluland, and Vinland. The other, called the Saga of Eric the Red, tells this same fundamental story with important differences. It combines the expeditions of Thorvald and Karlsefni into one, and records a massive battle in which Native Americans kill multiple fleeing Vikings, who are, in turn, only rescued when the brave woman Freydis scares off the Native Americans by beating her exposed breast with a sword. Both sagas are...
Yeah, it definitely sounds like third account folklore a little bit, but obviously there's some truth to it because we have the archaeological proofs. But
breast with a sword. Both sagas are the products of oral histories, probably first written down in the early 1200s. Each is clouded by medieval folklore. Corpses reanimate to give prophecies, and disembodied voices guide the explorers. In Eric's saga, Thorvald is killed when a one-legged creature shoots an arrow into his groin. These stories are the relics of the closing of an age. As Viking clans coalesce into kingdoms and the Scandinavian settlements on Greenland are abandoned, and the old tales of a short-lived quest to a western land are resigned to a compendium of rumor and fable, to be told around the hearth or carried far by the traveling merchant.
yeah, it's kind of crazy to me that they didn't document that a lot better. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like so much more stuff was so much better documented, even for the Vikings. That like finding lands that you know nobody else has ever been to, like foreign. Why did you not document that? You know what I'm saying? But 'cause, I mean, obviously I don't know, but
merchant. It's in Italy around 1340 that a monk relays what he's heard of Markland. Further westwards, there is another land named Markalata, where giants live. In this land, there are buildings with such huge slabs of stone that nobody could build with them except huge giants. However, no sailor was ever able to know anything for sure about this land or about its features.
and obviously stories like that probably didn't help because that just scares people away. But so
In 1492, the Vatican records that no news has come from Greenland, that country at the end of the world, in 8 decades. Christopher Columbus reaches the Bahamas that same year. Scholars are left to doubt that the Vikings ever reached mainland North America, until in 1960, archaeologists in Newfoundland discover mounded ruins. Excavations will resurface sod houses, an iron forge, and chopped wood recently dated to the year 1021. Here, the contemporaries of the Erikson brothers and Karlsefni may have traded with indigenous people and launched expeditions possibly as far south as Maine or New York. But after a handful of years, the mighty Vikings abandoned their colony, mysteriously retired from their efforts to expand their domain westward in a bountiful country. A tentative mapping of their expeditions reveals that the Norse had likely met the ancestors.
that makes you wonder if they would have found maybe a more desolate piece of land that was still like good enough for them to start a new a new colony on. Almost makes you wonder if what would the British have thought whenever they landed up there and found Scandinavians up there and stuff like that. But what the hell?
expeditions reveals that the Norse had likely met the ancestors of the Beothic or Dorset Native Americans, a people whose resistance may have been the death knell for these first European settlements in the Americas. Thus reads the saga of Eric the Red. Although the land was excellent, they could never live there in safety or freedom from fear because of the native inhabitants. So they made ready to leave the place and return home. If America had been spared the wrath of the Vikings, Europe hadn't been so fortunate. When I watched Vikings, Merchants, and Explorers from Magellan TV...
Alright guys, we'll go ahead and end it right there. So yeah, definitely crazy to think about, just, you know, all the what ifs and stuff, like, you know, what if they would have been able to stay there and, you know, form a whole colony there. Like, that would be so crazy to think about, like a whole Scandinavian colony in North America, a whole 1,000 years before it really started coming over here. Almost, not a whole thousand, almost, you know, about 500 years, about 500, 600 years before anybody really started coming over like that. That's crazy to think about. But in any case, so thank you guys again for joining me on another episode of Mike's Intellectual Corner. If you guys like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys on another one. I'm out. Peace.